Welcome everybody to today where we celebrate the memorial of St. Ignatius of Loyola. If we continue to reflect upon this saint, notice that this saint had many contributions to the faith that each and every one of us here as Catholics can learn. So there are several things to which we can continue to learn from him. First off, initially, he had his own human thoughts to the point where he had his very, very own desires to choose from, to which it can involve him being very, very satisfied over a period of time. But then, he came to realize that this worldly thought had created more of a way of discouragement, to the point where right when he continued to think about Christ and the other saints, it really interested him to the point where he decided to go and pursue the desire of going to follow Christ. Hence, because of this, he dedicated more of his life towards prayer, towards reading numerous amounts of books. Each and every one of us here, as Catholics, have our own way of human thinking as well as Christ, who continue to influence each and every one of us here, to the point where we have to ask ourselves these questions. Who do we continue to prioritize throughout our journey of faith? Do we continue to prioritize our own human desires, or do we continue to prioritize Christ himself, to which he gave his life for each and every one of us here out of love? So each and every one of us here, as we strive to continue to live forth our journey of faith, are called to recognize these distinctions between our own human minds versus Christ-like mind, so that way each and every one of us here can be able to discern what is considered good, what is considered right, what is considered the path needed for each and every one of us here to go to continue to follow Christ himself. That is one of the first lessons to which St. Ignatius of Loyola wants to teach each and every one of us here. The second of which is when they continue to follow Christ, sometimes they face series of temptations where the evil one, despite us continuing to follow Christ, wants to plant in each and every one of us here this sense of discouragement. The discouragement that would lead us to question ourselves, why do we continue to follow Christ? Why do we continue to do this? Isn't it just so boring? Isn't it just a waste of time? That is what devil wants to plant in all of us, to the point where we feel very, very saddened when we go to continue to follow Christ. But the question comes back to lie upon each and every one of us here, to the point where it should evoke this deep sense of reflection. Do we continue to follow Christ despite the amount of challenges to which we are going to face? Because the devil wants to try and challenge each and every one of us here to the point where their goal is to lead us away from Christ. But each and every one of us here have a choice to which we are to make. And if we look at St. Ignatius of Loyola, notice that they continue to pray to the point where they are going to be able to avoid these series of temptations to which they continue to face, to which it presents to each and every one of us here a role model to which we as Catholics can strive to follow. How despite the amount of times that the devil continue to tempt each and every one of us here, we should strive to continue to avoid what the devil is trying to plant, because the devil knows their tricks. Even the strongest ones, the devil can try and tempt each and every one of us here. Just like how Satan is trying to tempt Jesus 3 times in the desert, to the point where the devil knows our own roles, to the point where they can use that against each and every one of us here. So what can we do to avoid falling into these temptations? It all starts off with saying a big no to the devil. Many of us here, despite our words, act as in wanting to perform what the devil is trying to plant within each and every one of us here. But if we continue to say no, we have to act upon this no. And it's going to take some time for each and every one of us here to go and avoid these temptations, because although that we may feel very, very left out, all of us here will come to recognize that the more that we say no to the devil, the more that we continue to want to continue to follow Christ himself. So, that being said, let's reflect upon today's Holy Gospel, where people continue to doubt Jesus. And because of this, Jesus had mentioned that he's not going to perform any signs because of their lack of faith. So, what does this continue to remind each and every one of us here? All of us here are encouraged to continue to make room for Christ to come to each and every one of us here, so that way all of us here can go to recognize the presence of Christ himself. And when we continue to want to do that, then we will come to recognize that Jesus does indeed help guide each and every one of us here along the faith, to the point where we can go to easily recognize and see Christ himself. So today, Jesus is inviting each and every one of us here to consider, did we ever doubt Christ? And if we did, what can we do to help change that? What can we do to allow Christ to come to each and every one of us here? So that way, all of us here can go to remain united with him. Thank you to each and every one of you guys for taking the time to listen to this reflection, and for more videos like this, please consider liking and subscribing and commenting down below any questions that you may have about the faith. Thank you.